can't see it yet. So should we just say let's go? Let's do it. Oh, here we are. Okay, we're live, guys. How's it going, everybody? It is Tech Tuesday, and yeah, we're here on Tuesday because we're going to tech out. Okay, I haven't done this for so long, I really don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. But I do know who does know what they're talking about, and that man is Justin Smith.
Thank you very much, Steve. So before we get started with our limit strap edition of Tech Tuesday, I have to let everybody know that Steve was such an instrumental, maybe even incremental
Keep it up.
part of this feed with our cutaway shocks. I mean, he did such a good job on the original set that we might have to show you how amazing those were. They are not the shocks that we will be showing you today, just as a hint.
They were so good we wanted to duplicate them.
That's not true though.
Yes, actually.
The Walker Evans one is the one I cut. It's just modified.
Here comes the excuses,
It
you
is
guys.
modified.
Tell you what,
Okay?
this could be a good drinking game. Whenever Steve has an excuse about his shock cutaway, drink. Think about it. Everyone's going to be tossed at the end of this one. So, but back to what thank you very much for coming back. We've been gone for a couple of weeks, had a lot going on. We had to postpone some stuff, but it's Tech Tuesday right now, and we're going to talk about limit strap tech, construction, why internally on a shock, why you have to have some limit straps. Now, first, I'm going to start by saying that limit straps are not new. You know, when we came out with them a few years ago, and a couple other people in the industry had some as well, a lot of customers that are UTV based thought this is some new, hocus pocus that nobody really needs. Well, guess what? Limit straps have been in off-road racing for 40 years before we even started doing that stuff. We didn't invent it, nobody else did. It's way back in the day when this stuff became standard issue for off-road racing. The reason is to try and stop the weight of a wheel, a tire, half of a shock, trailing arms, A-arms, or a rear differential, everything else, brakes, all of it, from falling out and hanging on the shock. Shocks are just not built to hold that, and you end up ripping them apart eventually. Well, the reason that UTVs have this issue is because UTV manufacturers need to keep the cost down so none of us bitch when we have $40,000 cars. Right, Steve?
Right.
No bitching, sir.
No bitching, Justin.
Two, they want to, number one, cost. Number two, as soon as you start adding more complexity to these things, then there's a lot of other issues that add to that. It's kind of an OEM thing. Won't get into that. But if you can, why would any manufacturer go with straps if there's no issue the way that it's sold? Well, if it doesn't clunk, if it doesn't pull the shock apart the way it's sold, there's no problem, right? So I'm not going to address that. The thing though is, as soon as everybody buys a UTV, they're changing everything on the car. They're throwing wheels and tires at it, they're throwing accessories at it, possibly tuning the suspension with us, spring kits, things like that, to try and accommodate for all the things that they're changing on the UTV. As soon as you change unsprung weight, then everything that they're doing to stop extension clunk is gone. And now you have it, and now it's a problem to deal with, and that's why you need straps. We will show you on the inside of these shocks over here that somebody other than Steve cut open.
Yeah, show them all these crappy little displays we got.
And why you have to have that for the inside of the shock. So come on over. We also made a list of things that we want to talk about so I don't forget and we kind of stay on subject. John, thinking about you. So, why you need straps? To the board. It stops extension clunk. What is extension clunk? Well, if you don't know, but you might be driving your UTV and all of a sudden you're going through the whoops and the tire extends, suspension extends, or you jump the vehicle and the suspension extends fully. When it stops, that clunk is the shock internals clunking against itself, and you feel it inside the chassis, almost like somebody with a ball peen hammer smacks the frame. And it's uncomfortable, it's unsettling. People are like, what the hell is going on? And it's actually shock internals. So over to these shock cutaways that Steve did not do. This one right here. Oh wait, this way, right?
I did do that one, Joe.
This one. Actually, so Steve did this one once. We just had to redo it. So Steve, where's the original? Where's this one?
I don't condone anyone drinking, so I am not going to have any excuses. I did cut it crooked, Justin.
Okay. No, that's a no excuse?
No excuse. I did cut it crooked. I don't want them to drink during lunch.
You might have to
Dang,
prod him
there it
into an
is,
excuse,
yeah,
just saying.
We'll work on it.
All right, so here's a Walker Evans shock.
I don't think he can let it go. I think it's going to bite him.
It's festering in my brain right now, but stop to talk about it.
So, Camille, I'm not sure if you can see some of the details on this, where we're at, but if you need to come in closer or not. So this is a Walker Evans front shock on most Polaris razors. You can see how some of the internals work on this thing. You've got piston valving. This is the bottom out or extension cup, not bottom out cup, but top out cup, which is your extension stop. As the shock compresses, it gets up into the needle. This needle closes off a passage, which makes it stiffer for jump landings. And you get back out of the needle and you get into normal ride quality right here. When you jump the car and it goes in the air, then this system extends, and that insert on the seal head goes inside this extension cup. These two fit together. That is about a 10,000th of an inch fit. And then remember, this is full of oil. So when these two parts come together, it squirts oil between the two systems. Steve, get you excited, sir?
Yeah, oh, yeah, I heard squirting and I liked it.
Wait a second, I'm going to talk about the shaft in a second. So,
yeah.
so the oil that is trying to work its way out of this tight fit between these two parts stops the speed of extension. As soon as this comes out and hits here, it slows down and hopefully comes to a nice smooth stop. When the wheel and tire and suspension components are all factory weight, this is actually tuned perfectly for that, and you have no extension clunk. But the second that you put a heavier wheel and tire on it, the second that you change a spring kit to accommodate for weight that you've added to the vehicle, the second that you've changed anything on the UTV, this speed changes. It comes down faster. This hydraulic stop cannot stop it in time. And what you feel is this. But with oil in it, it's not that loud. And what happens, it's a bang on the chassis because this is bolted to the chassis as it clunks on extension. That's what you feel inside the UTV when you're in the air. That's what extension clunk is when it comes to a Walker Evans shock. Now, on this Fox.
Justin, before you go into that, I think you should use the superior one, which is right here.
Excellent hiding spot, Steve.
I think you should use that one because that one is the more superior cut one.
Okay, Camille, come over here for a
And I believe that would be the better figure for it.
So you guys might want to take a look down this cutaway of this amazing first Fox shock right here that Steve so proudly jumped on. I think that this thing is very close to a barber pole as opposed to a visual aid, personally. Okay. What do you think, Steve, after seeing this beautiful specimen that's perfectly straight next to yours?
I think this one's junk, and I think we should do it on this one. Mine has some good ratio. You can slide.
Yeah,
spin,
I mean, we can see some internal parts in here that are, I mean, incredibly straight. At least you're consistent.
It looks killer.
I will
Justin.
give you that.
It looks killer.
You're referring to my text.
Yes. Am I?
Yes, you are. Would that be an excuse? I gave you permission?
I think we should bring over who made that one and have him decide what he thinks of that one right there.
Oh, you know what? Hey, Jordan, come here for 1 second.
Jordan, can you come over here real quick?
Jordan's lead fabricator here in the race shop. Any of the amazing work you've seen on any of the race cars is definitely Jordan's doing. And when I saw Steve's specimen of, I wouldn't say of not straightness. You know what we do have a lot of in the shop, Steve?
Not straight people?
Straight edges.
Oh.
They're very inexpensive and easy to use. I'm not sure if you've ever seen one of those, but clearly you have not. But this one right here, I just didn't think anybody would really appreciate that. So we brought Jordan in and say, hey, do me a favor. Hey, Jordan, do me a favor. let's get a cutaway out of this thing that looks pretty good.
But see, I heard all these suggestions when he was doing it, but I didn't. Never mind. No excuses. Don't drink.
Yeah,
Don't drink.
Don't drink and watch this feed. But
Beautiful.
Which
It
one's
is.
better?
This one's beautiful. It's a work of art.
Artistic
Thank you.
expression.
Smithsonian.
Hang it on a wall, put it on your shelf. You know.
So
I can put it
Make a
somewhere.
lamp out of it.
I can put it
excellent,
somewhere.
excellent job, Steve. I do know one thing for sure: you are not good with straight things.
I'll take it.
Okay, excellent, good game. All right, so our cutaway of a Fox shock. Here you go. Internally, back to our limit strap discussion, which John's going to be pissed that we had a sidetrack. Sorry, John. But you can see the inside of a Fox internal bypass shock. So we've got piston working its way in and out of, on the shaft, in and out, Steve? No?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Does it
he's-
squirt too, Justin?
It does from time to time.
Good.
So only when it's excited though, Steve. Mm-hmm. So you've got an external body, you've got a bypass tube, you even cut it away so we could see the bypass porting, Steve. See how that's important?
Now, Justin, I want you to hold on, Camille. Take a look at this one too, because I believe you can see said bypass porting right there, guys.
Okay.
Right?
There's one thing accomplished, right? Definitely.
I mean,
Thank
you
you.
win some, you lose a lot.
Thank you, Steve. So internally, we've got a piston working its way through the bypass section. Rotate this over, you can see you've got bypass ports. So as this piston is working up above this bypass port, it's getting into its bump stage on the top where there's no bypass porting at all. I'll roll it out of the way. As this is extending, which would be you jumping the vehicle or the tire off the ground, just like we were showing you in that Walker Evans shock, instead of having a hydraulic internal hydraulic bump on extension, the Fox uses a top-out spring. Top-out spring, once this comes in contact at full extension, it's hard for me to pull because it's about 300-pound spring rate. But you can see as it extends, that spring is going to compress and slow the system down. So instead of having it being done hydraulically, it's done mechanically with a spring. The problem is that this spring has a certain spring rate, which is in the neighborhood of 200 to 300 pounds. And as soon as you put a heavy wheel and tire on the system, then that's not enough spring rate. This system fully extends. It completely compresses the spring, and you get the same extension clunk that you get in a Walker Evans. That clunk comes through the chassis, you feel it everywhere in the chassis, and whoever's riding in the right-hand seat is like, what the hell is that, right? Steve, what do you got?
I have nothing, but Macholi might.
It's not me. It's actually Diversified Fab.
Yes.
Said Steve, not bad work for cutting it with a chainsaw.
Good job, Steve.
That's
Thank
pretty
you.
good.
Actually, considering that it was a chainsaw, it wasn't that bad. You're
I
right.
agree.
You're right. It was only a few inches off. Or, I don't know,
Story of my life.
50
Justin.
degrees off of straight. So, you guys, if you have any questions on why the inside is causing issues or how you get that clunk, hopefully this answers it. If not, ask away and we will definitely tell you. Mitch, you got a question?
Sean Wright said, can you add a bypass tube inside the Fox shocks that do not have one?
No. You cannot convert a non-bypass Fox shock to a internal bypass shock. Well, I mean, anything can be done. It's just going to cost you more money than the shock is worth. So you're better off selling what you got, buy bypasses. That's the simple version. Any other questions before I move on?
I had a really good one. I'm trying to find it here. Give me one
Okay,
second.
interrupt anytime. So why do you need limit strap systems? Because they stop extension clunk. We've now gone over what the clunk is and why you're getting that noise. One thing that we didn't talk about though is it stops shock failure. So what actually fails when the system comes apart eventually? Best that we show you on a walker because it's a straight exposed cut in a shock that is easy for me to hold, Steve. So when this thing is extending over and over thousands of times in a weekend trip, all of that weight is running through this system, through the piston to that top nut. That nut on top of that shaft is the only thing holding all of the weight, wheel, tire, arms, all unsprung weight. is being held by that nut. So what ends up happening, especially when you've got a shaft that's got a rebound adjustment, or in a walker that has a compression needle in the top, you have a shaft that's got a hole in it. So not only you don't have a solid shaft, you've got a weaker shaft with a hole in it, and it just snaps the shaft right off the end. And now all of a sudden, there's nothing holding this whole system together, and all the parts bang around, destroys the shock, and eventually the shaft ends up shooting out of the shock, and you've got a very, very crappy weekend ahead of you trying to get the thing out of the dunes or out of any other place that you might be. So typically, shock shaft nut or piston nut is going to snap the shaft off when you have too much extension clunk over time. How long does it take to do that? If you're racing, you can do it in 200 to 500 miles. It just depends on the weight of your unsprung system. Heavier, like 35s, it's going to happen faster. 30s can go a whole season. If you're a play car system instead of a race system or guy, then you're going to have it's going to take longer to happen because you're not abusing it as much as the race guys do, and you usually have a lighter unsprung weight system. So it could take a couple of years, but eventually it's going to happen. So you want to address it. How do you stop that failure? You install a strap that stops the shock from extending fully where it contacts that extension stop and has the clunk. That simple. Straps stop the extension and keep it from pulling on the piston nut and pulling the shock apart. Mitch.
Does the limit strap affect the Smart Shock sensitivity on a 22X3?
Absolutely not. The Smart Shock system is sensor based. It knows where the travel is. It knows where accelerometers and G meters and steering inputs and brake and throttle are all functioning. None of that's affected by shortening the extension by ½ inch. Absolutely no issue with that at all. Next, on why. Happy wife. Well, we hear it on the phones a lot where the guy driving the car doesn't care about the noise, but his wife in the right seat's going, what in the heck is that clunk? And this thing's falling apart and I want out of the car. So happy wife, happy life. If you want to stop the noise, limit strap makes everybody else in the car feel more comfortable and they know the car's not coming apart. Prevents axle wear. Well, axles have the most load and the most wear on them when they have the most angle. The most angle in an axle system is always going to be when the wheel and tire system is fully extended. When you're in the air or through the whoops, either way, right when that system clunks, that's when the axle sees the most load. We, in the racing side of things, choke the suspension system up 1 to 2 inches. And the reason for that is that we can overheat axles by running fully extended at max angle all the time in a race, floored for hours on hours on end. Most play cars don't do that, and that's why most play guys don't see that issue. But we'll lose some suspension travel all day long to keep the axle system intact throughout a race. So it does help and prevent axle wear no matter what you're doing over time. Geometry. Limit strap systems do not change the geometry in your UTV, but what they do is it stops the system a little bit before full extension, say ½ inch max. That last inch of travel is typically where the geometry has problems in any UTV design. If you cycle the front suspension on anything, it's going to be fairly consistent throughout most of the travel, but as soon as you get to the end, they're squeezing out the last inch or two of travel to try and sell the vehicle by saying that it's 24 inches versus 23. And you guys may not want to, you might understand this, but if you don't, manufacturers absolutely need the marketing of having the most travel of all of them. Okay, people are going to buy the one that says it has 28 inches. Whether they're lying about it or fudging it or calling it tire travel or sidewall squish, it's all BS. But whoever has the most travel wins in marketing. So if you can get an extra inch out of it, they're going to do it. But usually that's where your geometry goes to hell and you end up with tires all over the place and feedback and everything wearing out. So stopping the system a little bit before that tends to get the worst geometry out of play when you're driving it. Steve.
We got a question. How often do you have to readjust the limit straps, and how much extension do you set it at? So ours, when we send them out, we choke it up 1 inch. So on our setup, we choke it up 1 inch, and how often you have to adjust it depends on if you have extension clunk again.
It depends on usually weight.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be weight
and
too.
mileage, because if you don't drive a UTV much, you're not going to adjust it. If you have a lightweight wheel and tire, you're not going to adjust it very much. Heavy wheels and tires, driving it harder, more mileage, you're going to adjust it more. It depends on everyone's driving style and what you've got for accessories. But as a rule of thumb, you're going to adjust the straps in the first 1 to 300 miles, and then they're going to take kind of a set, and you probably won't adjust them for thousands of miles until the next go around. Now, that doesn't mean that you wouldn't adjust them in the first 100 and adjust them at 500 and adjust them at 1,000 and adjust them at 1,500. You can do that. The important thing, though, is that you can adjust them, because if you can't adjust a strap, then you'll be forced to run a limit strap that's way too short to account for when it does stretch so that it doesn't clunk. Mitch.
Is there anything to worry about with long travel arms?
Zero. Everything about long travel is exactly the same issue that we're pointing out. Nothing changes there, except typically long travel has more leverage on the system, and long travel will pull on the shock harder. So if you changed nothing, literally wheel and tire is bone stock, which puts long travel on it, it'll probably clunk. So you're adding leverage. Long travel is going to require a strap more than anything else. But nothing about the design changes. You still need it. Mitch.
That's actually a really good question. With the axles going through the bottom shock mount, does it give them a better geometry?
No, it does not. Axle geometry isn't going to change with that. But by mounting the shock to the lower arm, you're able to change where the shock is mounted. You can mount the shock more vertical, because since it's mounted to the lower arm, the shock head is not in your face and it doesn't shoot through the hood. You can see over it, so vision is good. When you mount it to the upper arm, the shock's coming up in your face and you'll have it sticking up through the hood, unless you lay the shock over and get it out of your face, which that geometry is not as good. So upper arm shock mounts, in my opinion, sacrifice a lot of other things. Lower arm shock mounts allow you to get the angles right without having the vision problem. So I'm a fan of lower mounted, but it doesn't affect the axle in any way. No change there. Straps, adjustability. So straps will always stretch. They stretch twice. First, a strap on the bench might measure 20 inches, but when you put weight on it, it might stretch and stop at 22. Or 21 or 23, whatever it is, doesn't matter. It's just going to stretch out to the measurement that the strap is listed to be. For instance, if it's 20 on the bench and the strap says it's 22, when you hang weight on it, it's probably 22. Next, that's your first stretch. Next, with time and banging on the strap, it's going to stretch probably another half an inch, maybe, and it's going to take a set and it's going to stay there the rest of its life. So you might have a stretch originally. We've had people call us and go, you got the wrong straps on the kit because they're way too short to put on the bolt. Well, when it's hanging on a jack and the arms are all the way out, yeah, the strap's too short to make it there. That's why in our instructions we tell you put it back on the ground, get the system back up, put the strap on the bolt, and then jack it up. And the strap's going to stretch 2 inches. It's going to hold it where we want, and then you adjust it. That's your first stretch. Second, over time, a couple hundred miles, like we tell you, strap's going to stretch a little bit more. And when it does, you want to be able to adjust it and pull it back up to the point where it doesn't clunk on the shock. How much is that? Well, we tell you, hey, choke it up half an inch. It doesn't matter whether it's a quarter inch, a half an inch, or an inch. We just want it stopping the shock before it hits that extension. And it won't make noise if it's just a quarter inch above it. But over time, it might stretch a little bit more and then starts making a little bit of noise, stretches a little bit more, and then all of a sudden it starts clunking again. Super easy, adjust it up a quarter inch, and it won't do it again. That's why strap kits must be adjustable. When you see kits on the market that aren't, and they're just slamming a strap on the upper and lower bolt, they're not adjustable, yeah, they're cheaper because they don't have the bracketry and the adjustability, everything you have to build in it to make it work. But in order for that to work, they have to run a strap that's 2 inches too short and choking all that suspension up for you to allow for it to stretch out and not clunk. Or they don't run the strap too short enough and it stretches out and it still clunks on the shock because straps are made in 1 inch increments. You know, adjustability is super, super important. Axle wear, geometry, last, proven. What we mean by proven, the system's been in the off-road industry forever. Every trophy truck, every class 1 car, every Volkswagen Bug 1600 12 car. I mean, look this stuff up. It doesn't matter if it's bone stock all the way up to trophy truck, you're gonna find limit straps on all that stuff because they're gonna wanna save the shocks throughout a race. It's been around forever. We know it works. That's why we run that system. You guys have anything else?
A question you kind of already covered a little bit, I guess, but so do they have to be installed with the shocks on the car or shocks off of the car?
You can do it either way. I mean, if you look at our instructions, we're gonna show you how to put them on off the car. You can bolt them on the car. Sometimes though, it's hard to get to the clamp bolts when you have all the accessories and frame and firewall and fenders in the way. So it might be easier to pull it in some instances, but if you take a look at our instructions, it goes through it pretty thoroughly, for sure. How do you do strap kits? Well, you can bolt a strap to the chassis and you can hang it to the arm. You can bolt it to the frame on the inside and you can run it sideways to the shock mount. You can run it to the upper spindle mount. There's a million places you can run straps to. But the best place to run a strap is directly in line with the shock. The reason is it has the least amount of leverage on it when it lines up with the shock system. If this is a shock on the front end, tire being over here, strap is vertical, it's holding all the weight the shock is holding. If it's 300 pounds, that strap sees 300 pounds. When you take the strap kit and you mount it to the inside of the frame, as this extends, that leverage is pulling sideways on the strap more than it's pulling vertically. The strap might see 600 or 700 pounds of force instead of, say, 300. So what that does is it causes excessive stretch and loads, and it can cause earlier or premature failure in the strap. So you want to have the least amount of leverage on the strap as possible, which is directly in line with the shock. That's really important if you can do it on any model. So best angle for the least amount of leverage is one way on how to do the system. Adjustable, it's got to be adjustable. If you don't have an adjustable strap kit, you're saving money and you're blowing it out the window and burning it at the same time because you're going to need the adjustability in the future when the straps stretch. Stretch, we have to account for it with adjustability. We talked about that 5 times. Construction. The stronger the strap is, the more layers of strap and or the most stretching or stitching that you can throw into it, the more the longevity is going to be in the strap. So we run a triple layer system. It's triple stitched, which means that we run the strap material 3 times back over itself. We triple stitch it so we don't have failure in the material, we don't have failure in the strap stitching. And where it's wrapped around both, what's the right term for the tabs? I guess it would just be the end loops, right? Strap end loops and tabs. Our tabs are chromoly as opposed to mild steel, which most strap kits are mild, and you tend to oblong the hole unless it's chromoly. Also, we have a wear preventer, which is another piece of material on the portion where the strap runs through the tab and keeps the strap from fraying. With our system, the way we have you install it, it's important that the strap tabs are perfectly straight when it's stretched and extended. If you tighten the tabs up crooked and it extends, then those tabs want to cut the strap because it's pulling the strap sideways. So pay attention to our instructions. There's a reason for having everything tightened when it's extended. I think that kind of covers the whole process, but Steve is laughing for another reason.
Instagram is going off the chain right now.
On. Let's hear it.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
So Somebody named Jeff, he said, who else is pooping right now? I'm getting freaking learnt. And then
You're sick, bro.
And then he also said, I can't say that one.
Let's say it anyway.
He said, lesbians going crazy over all the strap talk.
Oh, as in strap on? Steve, you're the one that's not straight around here. So
I don't know who this dude is, but I like him. He's going off the chain on Instagram.
let's hear it. Send it.
I got a wipe for this. That's what he said
Gotta
right
wait for
there.
this? I'm sorry, man.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
He's got some good ones.
What else? I'm done talking, so you guys.
There is one question on our summer free labor special. Does that include limit strap installs if I have an appointment for springs and RIS? Yes, it does. But your car, you have the Walker Evans Pro R. I do not have front limit straps completed for that yet. By the time of that appointment, his appointment's in a month. Do you think we'll have him in a month, Mitchie?
We should have them in a month.
So possibly have it for yours in a month. Yes, it does include in the free labor special. As of right now, I do not have them for the Pro R Walker Evans
So
edition.
wait a minute, it'll happen.
Yep.
I have a great question.
Mitch, let's hear your great question.
We've been talking about strap kits on the front. Are they equally as important on the rear?
Great question, and I'm a little bit preachy on this one. We will tell you if you need stuff and if you don't need stuff. Okay, we might make products, and we'll be the first one to tell you don't need it in certain applications. Okay, most play cars don't need rear straps. The reason is that the rear shock tends to be larger in diameter. The ability for that shock, either through hydraulic stop or spring, tends to have, it's got more force available to it to stop the extension, so you don't usually get the clunk on the rear in play stuff. In racing, we can rip a rear shock apart in 3 races. So it's just a matter of time before it happens. You don't have to have it. We highly recommend it. If you're doing fronts, do the rears, because if you're gonna own the car for a decent amount of time, or you're gonna run it hard, you're gonna see the issue. So eventually, it just happens later. Steve?
So it is on our sidebar, but there's a question about Shock Therapy KRX rear limit straps.
Steve,
Wow.
that is such a cool
Look
segue.
at that.
Can you possibly deliver the information straight?
You got some good puns today. You're punny.
You see what I'm doing?
You're very punny.
Yeah. But yes, please, why don't you tell everybody what we got?
So we do have KRX front limit straps, and do we have the rears releasing today too?
No.
No.
They are in the
Okay.
works.
The rears are still in the works, but we do have the fronts being released. They should be live on the website right now.
Okay.
Should be live. And also with that, we have our Yamaha R-Max for all you Yamaha people. We do have our limit straps for that as well on the website.
The way you said that was kind of like you people. It was kind of like, I don't know, condescending. I think you should apologize to all
let me redo that.
Okay.
To all you beautiful people out there with Yama dogs, we do have a extension clunk limit strap for you. So yeah,
Thank you. Very good.
I apologize for putting you guys in your own category.
Yeah. So if you guys have more questions, then fire away. We're going to give you like 2 minutes. Otherwise, I think we've kind of covered every single thing as to why you need limit straps on a UTV, why they're not on there to begin with, why everybody should have them as soon as you accessorize the car, and exactly what fails and why it's a clunk when you don't have a strap on that UTV. So that's about all I've got to say. And if you guys don't have any rapid fire questions, Mitch,
John,
send the last 2 questions and we're out.
John really wants us to show the installed limit straps on Ernie's car.
Oh,
Mr. John Crowley.
yes. Thank you,
Yes.
John. Good suggestion. Come on over here. We'll show you this. We actually don't have any good lighting on this one. Maybe a little better on this one. Huh? Yeah, this one's a little better. Neil, maybe if you can hop on the back side of that shot. So we've got a Pro R. This is actually Ernie's car with a strap kit bolted to it. This is an adjustable upper clevis, so you can adjust this after it stretches. Also, it's got on our straps and nobody else's an adjustable tether, and this keeps the strap from flexing too far out and maybe grabbing some accessories on other vehicles and before it's pulled back in. This tether keeps it close to the shock. And on the lower mount, always for us, stainless steel spacers, not aluminum. The aluminum ones tend to bend and crush, and then you end up breaking hardware. So stainless steel is super important to keep the lower bolts in place without bending. This kit is available on the site right now. We're always adding more limit strap kits to the website for every new model. As Steve had mentioned, KRX and RMAX are available right now. Those are the 2 newest ones. And we have more always in the works. As soon as we can get more time on the CNCs, we'll knock them out. Steve, anything else?
I got nothing.
If you got nothing, then Mitch is the
I got last question. 2018 X3 Max, can I mount your straps on the front of the shock if I flipped my shocks?
Yeah.
You should not have to mount them on the front. You can still mount them on the back, even if you flip your shocks out. It will still mount the same exact way.
Spoken by somebody who's put them on a few of those. And when I say a few, I mean a lot. So thank you, Mitch. Appreciate it.
You're
guys,
very welcome.
Thank you very much for tuning in on Tech Tuesday. Hopefully we've answered everything when it comes to questions on why you need limit straps. And if you have friends with questions, then send them to this video and help a buddy out. Steve, why don't you just take this, send it on out of here?
I sure will, Justin. If
Straight
you
to
guys
the
are
website.
looking for the straightest cut parts on the market, please visit www.shocktherapyusa.com or call us at 623-217-4959.